What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Dissect That Film, where we dissect your favorite films, film franchises, and now TV. Today is episode 3 of our TV dissection, where we're talking about episode 3 of Dexter New Blood. Joining me today, as always, is the wonderful Angela from DNA Gaming. Welcome back.
Yeah.
This is a great time of week to get to sit down and talk about Dexter.
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah. All right. Before we go into anything, of course, we do non-spoiler stuff in the beginning of the show, and then we will jump right into spoilers, and we will let you all know when we get to spoilers, so that if you guys have not seen the episode, you can pause the show, go watch it, come back, listen to our thoughts and with all the spoilers, and then enjoy it, hopefully. We're going to start with Angela. Angela, what did you think of Dexter New Blood, episode 3, Smoke Signals?
I know they're building up to something, but I felt this one was like slower
Mm.
than the other two. Like I felt like the first one, set the pace.
Yep.
Then the second one kind of went, and then this one is kind of like slowing down. I know they're building up to something,
Yeah.
but I just kind of felt like, oh, something's gonna happen. No, oh, something's gonna happen. No,
Like this was the bridge to something else. Like they had something crazy here, and then now they're crossing that bridge to whatever the second part of this show is going to be. We're only 3 episodes in, too. So I like all the characters, all the things that the characters go through in this episode. And I kind of like the fact that it's not focused. It didn't primarily focus on Dexter. We got a lot of Harrison. We got a lot of Clancy Brown's character. Just a lot of everybody in the different pieces, and like, oh no, is Dexter going to get caught? This is, if you're a Dexter fan and you've been through the prior 8 seasons of the show, you know how there's always that point in time where you're like, oh no, are they going to get him? But he always finds a way. I enjoyed this episode. Yeah, it was a little slower. I liked the whole dynamic with Harrison and a character that he befriends. I really like that. We'll talk about that more in detail when we get into spoilers. I also like his relationship with Audrey. I just like that whole dynamic where it's not like, I feel the problem with certain movies and television where it has to do with high school kids is I feel like it's just not realistic. Listen, I haven't been in high school in over 10 years. You're the same way. Like, we haven't been, like, I just don't picture like kids being like, you watch. So I'm watching Chucky also, like, it's because it's happening at the same time. And the way that like high school kids are portrayed in that show are kind of like, you got that really just ridiculous bully, and then no one like stands up for him, or like people are just so like, I've never met a kid like this who just, and like the parents are just like, wow, I'm just going to ignore everything. It's weird. Where this is a little bit different, where the kids, like, I feel like all the kids in this show you could walk into a high school and meet those exact type of kids.
Oh yeah.
With like the pothead kids aren't like, yeah, they're dicks, but also there was like moments and times where they were really cool with Harrison and just how that all went down. But yeah, I liked that. I always love the way Dexter is. Just, he's so nonchalant about things, even though inside he's terminally like terrified, because he's like, shit, I fucked up. I'm bad at this. Yeah, and I kind of have some questions though at the end of this episode, because in episode 2 we kind of assumed that Matt's dad, Clancy Brown's character, what was his name? Kurt. You automatically assume Kurt is this creepy guy who keeps this girl hostage, and then bad things happen in this episode. But there's also some questions that there's also another thing where I'm like, maybe it's not him. Maybe this is just a red herring for another character being that guy. What do you think?
I don't know. Like, I keep
Right?
wanting to say it's him, but then I don't know
It's tough. It
because
yeah.
the other guy
Right?
kind of gave me creepy vibes.
That's what I'm saying. That's where
So,
it pulled up a lot of questions. Where it's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't just be automatically pointing at him being that, shadowy figure. I should look at this other guy who maybe you don't suspect because he's just somebody who you wouldn't suspect, because why would he be, why would he have to do this? He's a billionaire.
yeah, yeah.
But
And you can't go by the eyes because they kind of have the same color eyes.
right.
I was like, dang it.
It's a lot of questions in this episode. But boy, every time I watch this show, I'm like, man, I feel cold watching this show. It's just cold. And it's funny because the town, so this town is probably not far from where I live. I don't even think this town exists, but it's just funny because they bring in somebody from Albany, and Albany is literally like an hour and a half from where I live, which is just funny. I was like,
I
man, this is like right around the
it,
corner from me.
I think it does exist.
Was it Iron Lakes, right?
Mm-hmm. It says upstate New York.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I'm not too far from that. Deb wasn't super prominent in this episode, but boy, the scene she was in, A plus. It's just,
Oh yeah.
just everything she does is great. But she's also coming back to sanity a little bit, but also putting a lot of like haha moments because she knows that Dexter's in a pickle. So she's still kind of poking at him like, look what you did, dumbass, which is always great. But she's very hands-on with Dexter.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about this last week where she is very, like the last episode, she like grabs onto him and shoves a bullet down his throat. And this week she does something very similar. It's just very weird. Overall, I enjoyed this episode. Was a little slow, but I like where it's going. And to be honest, I don't really see Dexter, like even in past Dexter seasons, you have these episodes. This is the kind of the bridge to kind of form some relationships with some of these newly arrived characters, and just put some weird situations. The ending of this episode I really liked, and I'm looking forward to next week. So with that, do you have anything else non-spoilers before we jump into spoilers?
No.
All right. Spoiler alert, everybody. So if you haven't seen episode 3 of Dexter New Blood, turn off this video right now. Go watch the episode, then come back and finish watching this episode. Because, boy, we are going to spoil the shit out of it. All right. So this episode opens up with Dexter coming out of his cabin, and he's just like, man, I really just want everybody gone. Like, I feel like it's so funny that people are looking for this guy when he's right underneath their feet, which I thought was great because of the fact that Matt's body is buried underneath the fire pit, and you got guys cooking like burgers on his fire pit, which is just so funny. He comes out and he's going to bring Harrison to school since he's going to be permanently living with him. So he's got to bring him there for like an orientation, or he's got to take like some placement test. And when he goes to the school and he talks with the principal, and the principal hears about like how Jim wasn't around, and she judges him hard. And I was like, it's none of your damn business, lady.
Yeah.
Like, who cares? Like, why are you, like, he's here now. Things are happening now. Why are we worrying about this? I didn't like the principal.
No. She's too judgy.
Yep. Like, I feel no way a principal should be judging a parent like that in certain situation when they have no idea.
Yeah.
But I guess you just had to have that. You had to have that interaction between Dexter and Harrison. What I like that Harrison was kind of defending him. He was kind of making it not sound so bad. But but man, she was grilling grilling Dexter the whole time. Especially when he finds out, I was like,
where were you?
Yeah, it's like my stepmom died. Where were I was like, yeah, I was like, okay, back up, lady. Just be the principal.
Yeah.
Harrison has to take a placement test so they can figure out where he's gonna be. You know, got to pretty much see how smart he is, what classes he's going to be taking, and all that. And he comes out into the hallway and he meets up with Zach and I can't remember these other kids' names, but Zach's like the leader. I think Zach and no, never mind. Ethan is the kid who's getting bullied.
Scott, maybe?
Scott, yeah. I think Zach's like the main kid of that group.
I think so.
So it's Zach and his cronies there. They're out in the hall. They're catfishing this nerdy kid they're sending him like nudes, just random nudes, and like pretty much catfishing him, saying like he pretending to be his girlfriend. And he's biting on it. And even I love that Harrison comes in and he just sees everything. And he's just like, that's fucked up. Which I was like, bravo. Golly. Harrison, to be honest, I think Harrison is creeping up. Like, as much as I love Dexter, Harrison is a cool dude. But also farther into the show, he's starting to show some tendencies, which I'm like, I can't wait to see how this goes.
I was waiting for it.
So he actually, well, this is later on, but he would eventually befriend this Ethan to help him out. He sits with him at lunch and pretty much tells the kid straight up, like, you're being catfished by Zach. You don't have this girl's not real. You need to, stand up for yourself. So he sent Zach back a picture of him like screwing a goat. Yeah. Which was great. Yeah. And then it's so funny with bullies, because this is how like bullies in real life are like this. A bully will bully somebody, but if somebody bullies the bully, they get defensive and they'll try to fight. Like you started this, man. Like, what do you mean? But yeah, he gets really pissed off. He comes to try to confront Ethan pretty much physically, and Harrison like puts him in he like grabs his throat. And it's not like a regular like grab. He literally like you pinch your fingers in like behind the windpipe. And it's like literally it's one of those type of moves where like people could like rip your throat out. It was terrifying. I was like, oh no, this kid's crazy. But I liked it. And I just like how Audrey walks up. She's like, hey, everybody, what's going on? Hey, Harrison, you want to ride home? Sure. Okay. It's just nonchalantly. But then she asks him about it later on in the car ride home. Before all that, though, we see that Dexter finds out or they determined that there was a camera in the woods where Matt died, where the deer was shot. Well, they don't know Matt's dead, but where the deer was shot. So they're like, oh, okay, well, that's crazy. Dexter goes down to the police station at first to see Angela, but they bring her in because he needs to identify the gun. He needs to identify Matt's gun because Dexter ended up selling it to him. He identifies it, but then they see another figure. So it's in like infrared, so you can't really see like faces or details, so they can't tell. They could tell it was Matt because of the gun he had. So they determined Matt's the one who shot the deer, and that was Matt. But then there was another person there, which is being Dexter, but you can't tell. It's just, there's just somebody else in the woods. And so they're like, okay, we're going to hire a crime scene investigator to come in and just see what they can determine and see where we can, what we can find out, because Kurt, Matt's dad, is determined. He's like, we need to do everything we can to find my son. And this crime scene investigator dude is hilarious. Because at first you're like, he's a buffoon. He opens the van up, all the stuff starts falling out. It's hilarious. But to Dexter's chagrin, this guy's smart, and he's probably as smart as Dexter, because he literally pinpoints everything that happens to the T. Even with the rock So like when Matt gets hit and he falls back, he hits a small rock. Well, Dexter took that rock and put it in his fire pit. But the rock's gone. But the guy determines that he hit his head on a rock. Like, he was just to the point. He's like, man, I really wish this guy wasn't as good as he is, because it's making his job harder. With all that information, they got to bring in dogs to sniff it out. And that's where you get the great scene where they're at school. Was this after Dexter meets with the principal again because Harrison scored like really high in his placement test?
I think she calls him while he's out there with the crime scene investigator.
Right.
Because he's like, I'm kind of in the middle of something.
Yep.
And I think that's what's going on.
Yeah.
I think it's right before.
Yeah. So they needed to. So he finds the CSI guy finds out that the human blood was mixed with animal blood, which was Dexter's whole plan to try to hide the blood, but didn't realize he was going to have to deal with somebody as smart as him. Kurt has to take a DNA test to make sure they can determine if it's Kurt's blood or Matt's blood. My apologies. And yeah, he gets a call from the school saying they need to come down and see him. And they tell him, oh, well, he scored higher than anybody. And so they immediately think he's cheating because the teacher's like, well, I left the room and I came back and he was done.
Minutes. Yep.
And my thought is, maybe don't leave the room when you're trying to do a placement test. When, like, listen, these are high school kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like, really? Maybe stay in the room till he finishes and then go do whatever you got to do. Or take their phones. If they're taking these tests, they don't need, like, if they don't need their phone for the test, but whatever. They accuse Harrison of cheating, and Dexter is kind of on the fence about it too. He asks him, and that's when Harrison kind of turns on him. He's like, oh, you don't trust me? Oh, I see. Guy who disappeared on me, like kind of throwing certain things in his face. And so Harrison has to take the test again. And this is where we get the great scene outside when Dexter's sitting in the truck and Deb shows up. And Deb is, man, she's not as aggressive this go around, but man, she is so funny because they're like, oh, well, they're bringing dogs in. Well, you're screwed. They can't hide that forever. And they're just trying to find all these, like, coming up with all these different ideas of what to do with the body. And then you get the thing where she's shoving the body parts in the wood chipper.
She's like, oh, I know.
Yeah. And it goes all over the car. And it's great. It's so great. Was the scene of her like in the bathroom with him, was that beforehand? The one where she actually like presses his head up against the mirror and puts the gun up to his head and tells him, like, pretty much tells him he's an idiot.
I think that was after.
Yeah, Deb's very physical.
That one I don't remember.
It was at some point because it was after he was talking to Angela outside about, you know, how they were going to be bringing in the dogs. They're going to be calling them in and doing all that. So he gets really scared. So he goes out late at night when Harrison falls asleep. You find out Harrison passed the test and got a better grade the second time around. So that whole thing is done. So yeah, so Dexter has to go outside and he has to fuck with the dogs. And so he unburies Matt's body, takes out the vest he was wearing, his hunting vest, and goes out to where the deer was shot and just runs around and tries to spread the scent of Matt so that the dogs would get confused and they wouldn't go back to his house. But Dexter's like, I got to figure out a new place to go. I got to figure out a new place to store this body because I can't keep it here forever. And she asks about, and I like how Deb asks about the lake, just like old times. He's like, yeah, but some fisherman's going to be fishing up Matt's parts of Matt.
Yeah, he said it's not deep enough.
Mm-hmm. Which was confusing because in the first episode, you thought that's what he was going to do. Mm-hmm. You thought he was just going to throw it in the fishing hole there.
Yeah.
I thought he lived on a pond. No, this man lives on a massive lake. Like, he lives on the Iron Lake. They like zoomed out. I was like, oh, wow, I did not realize it was that big. But I'm like, man, I wish I lived in a very secluded place like that, away from the people. But maybe another day. So yeah, so that all happens. He comes back in the morning, and that's what he's got to bring Harrison to school again. And this is where we get the great scene where he helps Ethan bully Zach. He comes back to him, and you get the whole altercation in the hallway. And then Audrey offers Harrison a ride home. They're driving home, and her car breaks down. But she also talks about her family. She talks about her dad and her birth mom. But Angela is her mom because her birth mom gave her up when she was born, which I liked that whole thing. Her car breaks down because it's a piece of crap, but she's really smart and knows what needs to be done. There's no service, though. Harrison, go down the street, call the shop, tell them what I need. I know what I need. My mom trained me for this. But who were to show up while she's trying to fix her car but rich boy, damn it, what was his name? Olson.
Yep.
Who I thought was Matt's dad the whole time. So such a curve. I was like, what is going on? So he comes by and offers some help. Like, hey, you can sit in my car, you can watch TV. I got some snacks and all that stuff. She's like, no, dude, like, you're a bad guy. But then he comes back. He's like, well, you think I'm bad, but yet you're driving this piece of shit that's putting a lot of emissions into the air. So that kind of seems hypocritical. And she just doesn't know what to say to it. And he's like, okay, see you later. And goes away. But Harrison shows back up. And I guess everything is back to normal again. Do they go down to the meat shop and all that beforehand, or was that after? Like, to go get the sausages, and they find out the deer's in the freezer?
Oh. I don't remember if it was before or after. I think her car breaks down afterwards because her and Harrison are deciding what to do with the deer, and he's like, well, let's do something. Mm-hmm. So they're going out to the reserve.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's when it breaks down.
And Dexter had to pull up all the hunting licenses in the town to kind of determine like who could be that mystery figure. And the thing was, and the smart thing was, is that Dexter doesn't hunt. He never actually hunts anything. So he doesn't have a hunting license. So he's like, I'm good there. They can't track me. But he does get questioned by one of the cops to pretty much, hey, what's that gun that hunter's got? And he's like, oh, it's a Remington 700, I think he says, which is, there's like 1,000 of them in this town. And he's like, I'm good. And Angela has to go to the reservation, the Seneca reservation part of the town to touch, because she's got to question some people, and they get very defensive about that. And they always try to bring up this Iris situation, which I'm hoping they clarify exactly what happened with this. I'm guessing it's just a girl who disappeared and they never found her, because she states, I hope she's somewhere, doing something she enjoyed or something. It was somewhat what she was talking about. So yeah, she goes out there, does that. The Harrison... Oh, Dexter has to go find a good place, and he finds an iron mine, an abandoned iron mine, right? Is it an iron mine? Mm-hmm. In the mountain. He goes in there. It's a perfect spot because it's got a big giant hole, and he goes to test it. It's really deep. And he's like, all relaxed until he shines his light, and there's a bear in the cave. And he runs back out. And that's when Angela calls him and invites him to dinner. And he at first refuses, but then finds out Harrison's going. So he's like, yeah, I'll be there. But then later on, he's like hesitant to go. But then he's at the dinner and he's like, man, I enjoy this. I miss having a family. So that was cool. But yeah, they all determine. I like how there's no like stupid confrontations. The characters in this show have such a good rapport, and there's no like unrealistic like reactions to things. Like Angela's a cop, but she's also a person. Like she's also like very realistic with the thoughts in her head. Like her daughter, her daughter did something she wasn't supposed to do. She went out to the reservation without telling her, which is a no-no. But she tells her, like, gives her a solid plan on what to do with the deer. Because of this deer being a pretty much like a sacred animal to the Seneca people, they're going to do some sort of ceremony for it. So, and she tells Angela that, and Angela's like, sounds like a plan. Where other people, I swear I watch another show or a movie and they're like, stupid. I know, crazy. We can't do that. And you're like, but why? I like how it all went down, and the conclusion was good. I liked the whole fire thing at the end where all the Seneca people are around the fire, you know, doing their final tribute to this spirit. And Dexter and Harrison are like, we got to get out of here. Like, this isn't our thing. But then that's when it pops into Dexter's head. I know how to get rid of the body. And I guess there's like an incinerator in the middle of the town. I'm guessing this is where the town brings their garbage.
I'm assuming so.
It seems very public because he literally opens it up and is able to control the whole thing. And yeah, he brings Matt's body to this incinerator in town, throws it in there. And I love how you get the shot of his head. Like, his head is always prominent. Anytime they show this dude's body, his head is always like,
they got to let you know it's him.
Yeah. So
it would be anybody else.
Yep. And yeah, the whole time though, this whole episode, you get Kurt in very weird stages of grief. I don't know if it's grief or what is going on with him. But you also get the subplot of this show, which is this mystery girl in this room and this guy that's watching her. And at the end of the last episode, you kind of assumed it was Kurt, but it's now I'm having questions. Like, I feel like in my heart, I feel Kurt is this guy, but I'm also like, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Olsen.
Looking at his eyes, it looks like Olsen. Just looking at.
So yeah, I like how the show is doing this. It's making me think, and it's making me very, very, like, I'm looking forward to this next episode because I just want to know, like, when is it going to be? There's only 10 episodes. When is it going to be before we figure out who Dexter is going to be going up against? When is it? Actually, I think the whole scene between the girl and this mystery guy, where the girl gets let out of her room and she runs out and then this guy is dressing up in like a bunch of white hunting gear, and he goes outside and she's running away and he snipes her. And you get that, you get the gunshot, and Dexter's out in the middle of the woods like, all right, I gotta go because hunters wake up early. Okay, so that was when he was spreading the scent around with the dogs. Because that's when he determined, he's like, I gotta get out of here because hunters wake up early. So yeah,
I think so. Because that was earlier.
Yeah, and then the guy with the dogs comes, and I like this one deputy for this town. He sucks. I don't like him. He's like a rookie, but he's just like dumb. Like, you're still a cop. Like, you still got to go through some academy, I believe. Like, better than to touch these dogs. You don't touch these dogs. They have a job. Don't be dumb. And then we also get this like mystery woman, this Molly Park. This girl comes in who wants to help with the search, I guess, and then you find out she's a podcaster for some like true crime. Podcasters, yay! We're getting all the love out there in movies and TV. Gotta love it. But yeah, this girl shows up. You don't really get much of anything about her other than you find out later from Audrey that she's a podcaster, and she has a really popular true crime podcast. So back to Dexter. Dexter burns Matt's body, and then he drives back into town, and he notices that Kurt walking out of the tavern, and he is drunker than a skunk, and he's like happy. He's like celebrating something, and he's like, this doesn't seem like the best way to grieve. And so he gets out to help him, and he And Kurt goes, "Oh, my son's alive. I just talked to him. I just FaceTimed him. It's great. I know he's alive, so I'm happy." And Dexter offers to drive him home, and he does. And I love where he's like, the ashes of Matt are falling on Kurt, so this will be the last time that these two will be together. And I was like, that is so... What a good line. What a good final setup at the end there. And that's pretty much how this episode ends, is those two driving away. Kurt plastered out of his mind. Yeah. Yeah, so any final thoughts on episode 3?
Not about the episode, except for the guy that plays the bully.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Wahlberg's nephew.
I saw in the credits there was a Wahlberg.
Yep.
I was wondering who it was. Which son is? Whose son is he? Donnie's?
Son of Robert Wahlberg.
Oh, the guy who actually he's like the main guy from Wahlburgers. He's the cook.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, I saw that and I was like, oh, I wonder if
that was cool.
As I was like, I don't know how old Mark Wahlberg's kids are, but that's pretty cool. That it's a Wahlberg. He acted like a Wahlberg. Not he acted like a Wahlberg. Oh man, I thought it was funny. What are we looking forward to for next week's episode? What do we want to see?
I want to see more Harrison.
I agree. Very much I'm liking Harrison. I like the actor who plays Harrison as well, Jack Alcott. He hasn't been in a lot in his career, but I think he's doing a great job with this role. Of course, Michael C. Hall just bringing the fact that you can literally be this, like, have that same mentality 8 years after, 8 years of not doing that character. Bravo to him. I think all these actors are great. Not a fan of the deputies of this town. I'm not a fan of the dumbass one. And then I'm not really a fan of the other guy either. He's the wrestling coach. You want to wrestle?
Wrestling coach, yeah.
You want to wrestle? Yeah. Oh, I'm the wrestling coach. Oh, okay. Oh yeah, and Harrison's gonna be wrestling, so we might get something having to do with that in an episode. Maybe him and Zach wrestle, and we get like a really intense wrestling match. Do we want to see? Do we need to see that? No, but is it probably going to happen? Yeah. Probably. Also, something we skipped over was Ethan. I'm kind of concerned. This kid's got some dark things going on. He shows Harrison his picture. He's like, "Hey, you want to see some pictures I made of Zach and everybody?" And it was literally like Zach and all those guys like slaughtered, and then Ethan is dressed like the Punisher. And he's like, "Oh, what are you supposed to be, the Punisher or something?" And I feel like something
punches a hole in him or something.
Mm-hmm. I'm very concerned about this kid and what they might do with this character down the road. I always love Deb being in the episode. I like how she's not like in it throughout the whole thing, but I like when she pops up. It's always the good camaraderie between Michael C. Hall and Jennifer Carpenter. They were once married. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And now and I guess they're still really good friends, and they live like right down the street from each other. So cool on them. Good. It's always good to be able to work with your ex. Yeah, that's about it for Dexter episode 3, Smoke Signals. This week on the podcast, we have our episode. We have The Fly. And then next week, we'll be talking. We got a few shows. A few shows that are still like up in the air on when we're going to do them, but we will have Dexter. We'll have our review on Dexter episode 4 next week, and then next week's podcast is going to be the 2016 Ghostbusters, which, because of Ghostbusters Afterlife being released this past weekend, I figured we're going to talk about we're talking about remakes. We might as well talk about a remake that is deemed in a lot of eyes unnecessary. It was not a favorable remake, but it has its fans and it has its haters. So it's going to be fun to watch that again and talk about it. Also, there's at some point we are going to be doing a Ghostbusters Afterlife review. We got to wait for I got to wait for my co-host to go see the movie so we can do that. But I also like to give some space between the movie being released and us putting a review, just so that people can go see it for themselves. Also, there's going to be a review on Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City at some point, because that comes out. Actually, it would be out today when this episode releases. So I'm going to be going to see it. I'm hoping that Adam will be back for that, since he did all the other Resident Evils. And also, we're going to have Piggy back on the show to talk about that. And we're going to have Dan and Angela. So it's going to be a packed squad for Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. I'm very excited to see it. I'm going in with low expectations, but it's going to be fun. And yeah, that's going to be the only things I'm going to announce as of right now, because I could keep going and I don't want this episode to be super long. Thank you, everybody, for watching this show. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope if you guys have any other TV shows you guys want us to talk about on the show, let us know. Maybe we'll do Hawkeye. Hawkeye comes out tomorrow as well. Maybe. I don't know. But yeah, leave us an idea in the comments. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment on this video on what you thought of Dexter New Blood Episode 3. Until next week, I am Brett Parker. That is Angela. We are Dissect That Film, and we'll see you all next week. Bye.